If you're a man under 30 and you've experienced erectile dysfunction, even once, I need you to watch this entire video. Because what I'm about to share with you is something most doctors are still not telling their patients. In my urology practice, I'm seeing men in their early 20s, healthy, athletic, no chronic disease, walking in with the same problem that used to be almost exclusive to men in their 50s and 60s. And here's what's terrifying. Most of them waited over a year before coming to see me because they thought it was just stress, or they were too embarrassed to talk about it. I'm Dr. Lena, a board-certified urologist, and today I'm going to break down exactly why this is happening, what the science actually says, and what young men can start doing about it right now. Stay with me, because the causes might genuinely shock you. I want to start by saying, if you're experiencing this, you are not broken. You are not less of a man, and you are absolutely not alone. Recent data from major urology journals now shows that erectile dysfunction affects up to 26% of men under 40, and the numbers in the under 30 group are climbing every single year. This is not a willpower problem. This is not a confidence problem. This is a physiology problem. And today, we're going to talk about it like the medical issue it actually is. Before we get into causes, let me quickly explain what needs to happen physiologically for an erection to occur, because understanding this makes everything else click. An erection is, at its core, a vascular event. It requires healthy blood flow, healthy blood vessels, a functioning nervous system, and the right hormonal environment, primarily testosterone. When the brain sends a sexual signal, nitric oxide is released. Blood vessels in the penis dilate, blood rushes in, and an erection occurs. For this to work, you need healthy endothelium. That's the inner lining of your blood vessels. Normal testosterone levels, a nervous system that isn't chronically overwhelmed. Adequate blood pressure and circulation. Now here's the key point I want you to lock in. Erectile dysfunction is often the first symptom of a deeper systemic problem. In older men, ED is a well-known early warning sign of cardiovascular disease. In younger men, we're seeing the same pattern, but the triggers are different. So when a 24-year-old sits in my office and tells me he can't maintain an erection, I'm not just thinking about his sex life. I'm thinking about his overall health trajectory, and you should too. Let's get into it. Here are the 5 primary drivers I see clinically, and all 5 are backed by peer-reviewed research. I'm going to say what many doctors are uncomfortable saying in a clinical setting. High-frequency pornography consumption is one of the most significant and underdiagnosed causes of erectile dysfunction in young men, and the neuroscience behind it is genuinely alarming. Here's what happens. Pornography, especially the high-speed, high-novelty kind available today, floods the brain's reward center with dopamine at a level that real-life sexual experiences simply cannot match. Over time, the brain downregulates dopamine receptors. It becomes desensitized. This is the same neurological pathway involved in addiction. The result? A young man who has no trouble responding to a screen, but experiences significant difficulty with a real partner. This is called Pornography-Induced Erectile Dysfunction, or PIED, and it's now been documented in multiple clinical studies. The fix? It requires a dopamine reset, which means a period of abstinence, often combined with behavioral therapy. I'll link resources below. The brain is neuroplastic. It can recover. But first, you have to acknowledge the pattern. The second driver is chronic stress, but not in the vague, hand-wavy way people usually mean it. When your body perceives chronic stress, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or HPA axis, goes into a sustained state of activation. Cortisol stays elevated, and here's the physiological problem. Cortisol directly suppresses testosterone production. It also causes vasoconstriction, the opposite of what you need for healthy blood flow. Men under 30 today are living through a stress epidemic. Financial pressure, academic pressure, social media comparison, career anxiety, and disrupted sleep All of these keep cortisol chronically elevated in ways previous generations simply didn't experience at the same scale. Performance anxiety is also a direct inhibitor of erections. The moment a man starts worrying about whether he'll get or maintain an erection, the sympathetic nervous system activates, and that neurological state is directly antagonistic to sexual arousal. It becomes a self-fulfilling loop. This is why I always screen my patients for anxiety and sleep quality. These are not soft factors. They have measurable hormonal consequences. You might assume that low testosterone is a problem for men in their 40s and 50s. That used to be true. A 2021 study found that average testosterone levels in men have been declining decade by decade since at least the 1980s. A 25-year-old today has measurably lower testosterone on average than a 25-year-old did in 1990, controlling for age and health status. Why? Multiple factors: endocrine disrupting chemicals in plastics and personal care products, poor sleep architecture, sedentary lifestyles, obesity, and ultra-processed diets that are deficient in the micronutrients needed for testosterone synthesis: zinc, vitamin D, magnesium, and healthy fats. Low testosterone doesn't just affect libido and erections, it affects mood, muscle mass, energy, and cognitive function. If you're a young man and something just feels off, getting your hormone panel checked, including total and free testosterone, is a legitimate and important medical conversation to have with your doctor. Normal doesn't mean optimal. Know your numbers. This is the one that concerns me most as a clinician because it has long-term implications far beyond sexual function. The endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels, is remarkably sensitive, and several lifestyle patterns that are now completely normalized in young men cause measurable endothelial damage. Vaping and smoking. I cannot stress this enough. Nicotine is a potent vasoconstrictor. It directly damages endothelial cells and reduces nitric oxide availability, the exact molecule you need for an erection. Men who vape regularly are doing to their vascular system what their father's generation did with cigarettes. The delivery mechanism is different. The damage is not. Alcohol. Occasional, moderate alcohol use is unlikely to cause dysfunction, but chronic heavy drinking and binge drinking, which is endemic in men under 30, depresses the central nervous system, lowers testosterone, and impairs the neurological signal required for erection. Obesity and insulin resistance. Fat tissue, particularly visceral fat, contains an enzyme called aromatase that converts testosterone into estrogen. Insulin resistance also disrupts the hormonal cascade required for healthy sexual function. We are in an obesity crisis that starts in childhood, and its vascular consequences are showing up in my exam room earlier than ever. Sedentary behavior. The cardiovascular system is a use it or lose it system. Men who sit for 8 to 10 hours a day, rarely exercise, and sleep poorly are setting themselves up for vascular dysfunction by their mid-20s. The erection is the symptom. The blood vessel is the story. If I could get every young man to do one thing for his hormonal and sexual health, it would be this: protect your sleep. Testosterone is released in pulses during deep sleep, primarily during REM and slow-wave sleep. Research shows that just 1 week of sleeping 5 hours per night reduces testosterone levels by 10 to 15% in otherwise healthy young men. Combine that with the fact that men under 30 today have some of the worst sleep hygiene in history: late-night screen exposure, blue light suppressing melatonin, inconsistent sleep schedules, and stimulant use, and you have a generation quietly tanking their own hormone production every single night. This is not about sleeping 8 hours occasionally. This is about making deep, consistent, uninterrupted sleep a non-negotiable priority. The fix costs nothing. It just requires discipline. Okay, now that we've covered the why, let's talk about what you can actually do. I'm going to give you the clinical framework I use with my own patients. Step 1. Get a proper workup. Don't just accept that this is normal or stress. push for labs. At minimum, total testosterone, free testosterone, LH, FSH, prolactin, thyroid panel, fasting glucose, HbA1c, and lipids. If your doctor dismisses your concerns because you're young, find another doctor. Your age does not make your symptoms irrelevant. Step 2. Audit your inputs. Pornography use, alcohol, vaping or smoking, processed food. These are the variables I look at first because they are modifiable. You don't need a prescription to change them. You need a decision. Step 3. Fix your sleep. Consistent bedtime. Room temperature between 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. No screens 60 minutes before bed. No alcohol within 3 hours of sleep. These are not optional lifestyle suggestions. These are hormonal interventions. Step 4. Move your body. Compound resistance training, squats, deadlifts, presses, has been shown to acutely increase testosterone. Cardiovascular training improves endothelial function. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity movement per week, plus 2 strength sessions. If you're not exercising at all, starting is one of the most powerful things you can do for your hormonal health. Step 5. Manage stress with intention. Chronic cortisol elevation is not something you can supplement your way out of. You need actual stress reduction, breathwork, meditation, time in nature, therapy if needed. I'm a urologist recommending therapy. That tells you something about how seriously I take the mind-body connection in sexual health. Step 6. If you need medical intervention, use it. PDE5 inhibitors, medications like sildenafil or tadalafil, are safe, effective, and appropriate tools when lifestyle changes alone aren't sufficient. They are not a crutch. They are not a moral failing. Used correctly and under medical supervision, they can actually help break the performance anxiety cycle while you work on the underlying causes. There is no shame in using available medicine. There is only unnecessary suffering in refusing it out of pride. I want to zoom out for a moment. We are living in an era that has made it structurally harder for young men to thrive hormonally. The food supply is worse. The chemical environment is more hostile. The psychological demands are higher. The sleep environment is more disruptive than at any point in human history. This is not about weakness. This is about biology meeting a modern environment it wasn't designed for. What I want young men to take from this video is not anxiety, it's agency. Every single cause I talked about today has a lever you can pull. Not all of it is easy, but all of it is within reach. Your body is trying to tell you something. Erectile dysfunction at 22 or 25 is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a conversation your body is trying to start with you. The men who listen early are the men who thrive long-term. If this video helped you, or if you know a young man who needs to hear this, please share it. This is exactly the kind of conversation that doesn't happen enough, and your share might be the reason someone finally gets answers. I'd love to know in the comments, which of these 5 factors do you think is the most under-acknowledged? Let me know. I genuinely read every comment. If you want me to do a deep dive on any of these topics, testosterone optimization, pornography addiction and the brain, sleep and hormones, vascular health, drop it below and I'll make it happen. I'm Dr. Lena. I'll see you in the next one.